Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. If you are enjoying these segments, please do hit like and subscribe. Today I'm taking up more of your questions in another segment of Ask Judy. This first question is from Warren Kroom, who said, "Can you answer on air what it is like playing a composite character based off a real person when that person was still alive?" Um, it What was nice about playing a real character in this case was that we weren't being asked to do something that was biographical or meant to be like an impersonation of that person, as if you were playing, a president or um, an actress. If you were doing the story of Judy Garland or something like that, something where you would be doing your best to embody that person with their mannerisms. In this case, we were simply representing Earl's family and events that either were real or based upon things from his childhood, or were really loosely based on things, or just completely invented, like just things that might have happened in that time period. So because of that, I wasn't trying to portray the mannerisms of Earl's oldest sister, who was Marion Hamner Hawks. So there was a little less pressure on me to live up to a correct impersonation of her, so to speak. But we felt that in representing Earl's family, that we wanted to do our best job. I wanted Marion to be happy with my portrayal of her. But when we had a chance to have conversations, she said, yes, she really was a tomboy, and she was very sweet and did say she really enjoyed my portrayal of Mary Ellen. So hopefully there weren't episodes that made her go, oh, I would never do that or say that. She at least never told me that. So the writing, I would have no control over whether it was something she would do. She could take that up with Earl. But if there was something in my characterization or the way I chose to play a scene, then yeah, I would perhaps feel some degree of that I disappointed her, but she never said anything, and I was grateful for that. But we were very happy and proud to be representing Earl's family. I loved this comment from Keith Thompson that I'm just going to share with you. So the viewers should give you a break. Have a disclaimer at the bottom of every blooper video in Behind the Scenes that says, state-of-the-art TVs in the late 70s, early 80s had half of the actual viewing area as compared with even a 42-inch screen of today. Number 2, the resolution of screens then as compared with today's technology is like comparing apples and oranges, analog, digital, digilog, digitog? I think maybe you mean analog and digital. So we're going to go with something in there. Perhaps I'm lacking some technical information about what that might mean. So I'm hoping it's just a typo. Anyway, number 3, the concept of rewind came in when NBC introduced the instant replay. No wonder NBC was the broadcaster of choice for sports. And number 4, with Digitechno, it is possible to stop, go frame by frame, magnify, and zero in on microscopic details that even the film editor didn't catch. While sometimes interesting, in some ways it's not quite fair to impose today's technology on productions from 40 years ago. Even the best of film editors could never have imagined that their work would be so closely scrutinized. But aren't we having fun doing it? It's like a little game of Where's Waldo and searching out and catching things. And so I think hopefully we're all taking it in the spirit that is intended, including Keith here. That it's just kind of fun to spot these things. And I hope that that's how you are enjoying it also. And then from City Guy USA, who apparently had a diatribe he wrote. He said he lost it when his phone fell on the mouse and somehow deleted the entire thing. And that he was going on about his pet peeves with the Waltons productions. So the first was when I think Stella made a comment about 7 beautiful redheaded children. I was like, no, there were only 2, Ben and Elizabeth, yet it was left in without correction. Well, first of all, actually, there were more than that in the homecoming. Perhaps not bright red like Eric and Cami, but certainly, I was there. So, I mean, Mary's hair certainly had red to it, as did John Walmsley's. So all four of them did have certainly red in their hair. And then for the homecoming, they did dye my hair and David's hair to shades of red. David's was a little more blondish red, and mine was a little more deeper auburn. And Richard's was sort of, like, again, a more blondish red, but definitely red there. So if you watch the homecoming, you will see an attempt there for all 7 of the children to have red hair. And in that case, of course, our father, played by Andrew Duggan, also they had with red hair. When they switched to the series, they decided that it would be the mother, Olivia, who had some red to her hair. And in the first season, you will notice that she does have red in her hair. So, but then they decided they didn't want to have to deal constantly with putting a rinse in Richard's hair or dyeing mine and David. So they decided to just let our hair grow back out to our own color. So they stopped worrying about that. And then I think Mary's hair faded a bit from the red, and John's hair faded a bit more from the red. And really it was left with Cami and Eric, who still had the visible red hair. So that's my pitch about the red hair, okay? So for whatever that's worth. And then you went on to say the sleeping situation, depending on who was visiting. And this I thought was very funny. From the outside, we have 3 dormers on the 2nd floor, meaning 3 rooms in my mind. Well, that was the front of the house, okay? John Boy's room, we see him sitting in the dormer writing, although from the inside, is that possible? Yeah, sort of, because you could see him sitting at a window. And then the next room was the boys' room. The next room was actually the girls' room typically. So if they changed that, I think when Aaron crawled up to the roof to spy on Ben, I think it was that. So that would have been a discrepancy on them moving the bedrooms around. So good catch on that one. And that leaves the last room for the girls' room. So actually it tended to be the parents' room was the one to the right up there. And we did see, like in an Easter story, where Mama gets up and, or at one point when she's looking out the window at the flowers, she is standing at that window, looking down from there to the windows. So the boys' room was actually kind of tucked around the side and on the backside, as was the bathroom and the attic area. So you ask about the bathroom, and everyone uses it. Also has a full-size tub. Where did John and Olivia sleep? Well, they did sort of cheat how those bedrooms were situated. But if you came up the hallway in the upstairs, you kind of first came to steps that went up into the attic, and then you were at John Boy's room. And then in the burnout, you sort of saw Olivia and John come from the end of the hall. So that would have been the furthest bedroom. And then you saw the girls sort of come from a bedroom in between. There was no door along that hallway. So when you saw someone really move along there, you saw there was no door. But at one point when we were exiting, we literally sort of were up against the wall. And when something happened, we sort of came out of the wall. So, and the boys' bedroom was across the hall from us, as was the bathroom. So it didn't really line up with the outside that you saw, so we just kind of had to fudge all that. So they go upstairs, there's no room left. Grandma and Grandpa are sleeping on a mezzanine where they aren't in line with the main floor of the house, nor are they on the 2nd floor. So in that case, the grandparents' room was actually level with the living room, because the way you entered the grandparents' bedroom from that sort of mezzanine area, they would come in, and if you were in their bedroom, you would see them go down steps, 3 or 4 steps into their room. So that was on the same level as the floor of the sound stage. So there was just that mezzanine sort of floated halfway up the stairs in between the 1st and 2nd floor of the house. Okay. So that takes care of all that, how things would have to shift. So it seems no matter whose bed you're in, they're all double beds and pretty extravagant thing to have during the Depression. They actually weren't. I took a look at that, but I'll come back to that. So people that are sick always have their own room with a double bed, even without John Boy giving up his room. Now we're second bedroom, two bedrooms short. People that have slept in this special bedroom were Jenny, Hobie, Olivia during her recovery from polio. She was actually in the parents' room during her recovery from the polio. And then there's the girls' room, which had to house Muffin with her own bed. So I took a look at the Big Brother where Muffin was there, and we see they've added a single bed into the girls' room for Muffin. And Elizabeth was in a single bed, and Muffin was in a single bed, and Aaron was in a single bed. So not so many of the double beds as it seemed like. And same thing with the boys' room, that Ben and Jim Bob, I think the boys were all pretty much in single beds as well. John Boy had the only sort of double bed, and the parents. So in the burnout, John Boy puts Elizabeth back in her bed, which is a single bed next to Aaron's bed. So there you go. I don't know if that helps on your diatribe. I'm sorry all these things stand out to you and that they're distracting. But, things maybe are looking a little different from your perspective than what I knew of the actual physical parameters of those rooms. So I hope that helps a bit. Thank you for joining me for this segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons with questions for Ask Judy. I will be back with more next time, and thank you so much for watching.